Hello, welcome back to another video. I have a little bit of a shameful secret, but I'm not really ashamed of it. When I was sick over the holidays, I had a lot of time to sit and stare at my books. And I came to the realization that I own a number of books that I have not read. A pretty significant number. 121 books. I have 121 books in my apartment that I have not read. So when I was coming up with New Year's resolutions, I have pretty much the usual ones that I always have. However, I have one that I'm a little bit frightened of, and that is to no longer buy books in 2023. To go on a almost complete book buying ban for the entire year. I'll get into the specifics in a moment, but I'm a little nervous about it. As you can imagine, I love buying books. I love discovering new books. I love going to bookstores, all of those things. However, I do think that it is time to face the facts, and that is that my TBR pile has gotten out of control. It is no longer a pile, it is an entire shelf. And I thought today I would take you through a little mini bookshelf tour to show you how I've organized my books to encourage me to read the books that I have not read. And if I'm being honest, I am scared for this challenge. However, I'm also really excited because I keep reminding myself that I bought these books for a reason. I picked them up, I thought that they sounded amazing, and I was really excited to read them at some point. So there are a couple instances where I am going to break this no book buying rule. One is going to be around my birthday, which is coming up soon. There are two books that I really want to buy. One is a cookbook, so I don't really know if I count that, but I really want to buy these two books, and they're both coming out in February. So I am going to wait and order those for my birthday, or I'm going to ask for them for my birthday. And then the other time is I'm actually going on vacation in the spring, and I'm so excited for it, and I'm going to get to travel and see a lot of really cool bookstores. And so I'm obviously going to let myself buy a couple books for souvenirs, because a part of this challenge is being grateful for what I have, but it's also realizing the types of books that I want to own and keeping titles that mean a lot to me, and maybe not spending money on titles that I don't think will be particularly memorable reads. That is the two times that I'm going to allow myself to buy books. I also did a big book buy just before the end of last year of all of the books that I do want to have that I have to order online. So I ordered 9 books, and that will bring up my books that I own that I haven't read tally to 130. Now last year I was able to read 70 books, so I'm really hoping that this coming year I can put a pretty big dent in the books that I already own. It's a fun challenge. I'm genuinely excited for it. Now, to keep myself excited and organized, I, over the Christmas break, did a massive reshuffling of all of the books in my apartment. I have a bookshelf in my partner's office that kind of just holds all of the books that I've read. Not that I haven't loved, but books that I've read that I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna read these again, or I have some series that just don't really fit anywhere else that, again, I don't necessarily love too much to have them out in the open. And I took all of the books that I haven't read and I put them on the shelves that you see behind me, and I organized them kind of according to genre. My biggest fear in this challenge is that I am an emotional reader, and I can't really read a book if I'm not feeling like reading that type of book. I thought that for this video, I would take you through a very quick book tour of my apartment, of all of the books that I haven't read and how I've organized them, and also officially announce this goal, because I really do want to achieve this goal this year. I think that it's going to be a really great lesson, because reading is my greatest joy. It is my favorite thing to do. Obviously, I love books. And so let's get into my reading challenge and how I've organized my books. This is an overview of the shelves that I keep out here. These books right here in these 8 little cubbies are all the books that I haven't read. There are some classics that I have read, but that I will always just like perpetually want to reread, and also the way that the spines look together are phenomenal. So I have put them on that shelf. These books over here are books that I've read and loved. They're some of my favorite works, and they're also separated by genre. And then these books up here are all of my favorite reads. They are 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5. They are just books that I genuinely really have loved, and they're kind of across genres. So let's dive into this top shelf. I'll do a very, very quick overview of these books because these books are just amazing. These books aren't really organized according to genre, really. I just kind of, when I finish a book and I really, really like it, I put it up here wherever it looks the nicest. And so you can see kind of an overview of like the favorite books that I've read in the past 2 years. Some of these I read last year, some of them I read the year before. All of them I have loved. I highly recommend A Gentleman in Moscow, one of my favorite reads of all time. Babel, or Babel, however you want to pronounce it, was phenomenal. I'm so excited to read the second book in this series, that will be the book in February that I actually break this goal for, because I just really want to own these books. I really love them, and they're so beautiful, and like, I really liked this book. I actually listened to it on audio first, and it was so good. And so I had to go out and buy it, and I'm definitely going to reread it before the second book comes out. Air Awakens is just my comfort series. For some reason, I really, really love this series. They also are gorgeous editions. I read this entire series. It was actually a reread last year, and still to this day, I call it my comfort series. I don't have any reasonable explanation for it. It's just a really good, fun, lighthearted, easy to read, but also really like heartfelt series. And I really like the world and the magic, and I also just really love the main character. I really identify with her. I've talked about this series before, the Dark of the West series, the Glass Alliance trilogy. Oh my god, I love this book series so much. It is World War inspired YA fantasy, and it is just some of the best writing for YA that I've read in a really, really long time. I will read everything Joanna Hathaway writes. I love her writing. Over here we have illustrated Anne of Green Gables edition that I adore, and then we have my first editions of various books and the Outlander series, just books that I've seen at thrift stores that I love. I have not read through this entire series. I've read up until the 5th book, and I've stopped. I'm gonna wait for the series to end, or I will just one year decide that will be my Everest and I will read them all. I have one of my favorite War and Peace editions from my best friend. She bought it for me for Christmas 2 years ago. It is so special, and I cannot say enough about War and Peace. And then over here we have some more Russian editions of books that I've read, and then we have The Outsiders and Phantom of the Opera, which are 2 of also my favorite books. And then that also, fun fact, is a poppy from France. I don't know, I brought it over a long time ago. I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but I have kept it ever since, and I love it. It's faded significantly now, but I'm hoping that keeping it in this glass will keep it kind of preserved for a while. Also, hello. Making our way down, these are books that I have already read and that I love. These are beautiful editions of books. This actually is a over 100-year-old edition of Edgar Allan Poe's works, his collected works, or his entire works, I should say, sorry, the complete works. This was a wedding present from Tom to me, and I love it so much. They smell amazing. I don't think I will ever read them. I can't wait to actually put them somewhere where they can be preserved in a much better place, but for now this is where they are, and I genuinely love it. I also have his complete works here. This is my reading edition. I've got a gorgeous edition of The Hobbit, Northanger Abbey, my favorite Jane Austen, and then 3 editions of Jane Austen in this beautiful Folio Society book set, which I actually got at a used bookstore. Down here I have some of my favorite, I don't know, literary classics, I feel like is what I would call this section. We have poetry over here, short stories and poetry continuing on this way.
some of my favorite poets. I love Rilke. I love Mary Oliver. I love Sylvia Plath. Bo Burnham's book is also really good. I really like his poetry. We got Shirley Jackson, we got Dante, we got a Bronte sister, more Phantom of the Opera because I own so many editions of this book. I read it every year, love it, holds up. Angela's Ashes, I haven't read that in a really long time, but it used to be one of my favorite books in high school. I think I just really liked Frank McCourt's writing. I haven't read him as an adult though, so. And then over here is where I have all of my to be read books. I am laying on the ground so you can see. That's my foot. This section, these are the classics that I haven't read, except for War and Peace, Frankenstein, and I started Bleak House, but I just could not get into it. All the other books I have not read, and they are all books that I really want to read at some point, maybe this year. Likely some of these will be picked up this year. 100 Years of Solitude. So I did put it up here because I do feel like it's going to be a pretty life-altering read for me. I'm really excited. I'll probably give that a try in the summer. I've read Frankenstein and War and Peace. I read Frankenstein almost every year as well. I am really excited to read Radcliffe this year. I really want to lean into the Gothics. So, you know, Radcliffe and The Monk and The Castle of Otranto. These are all books that I really want to give a shot this year too. And I just also really love big, thick classics. Some of my favorites. And I've always wanted to read Les Miserables because I love the musical so very much. And I feel like I would really like a book about a revolution. I just can feel it. And I also got this book used, and it's such a pretty edition. Actually, a lot of the books that I've purchased on these shelves, I've purchased used. Quite a number of them. I'm a big fan of used bookstores. Down here, I have some nonfiction, except for Out of Darkness, Shining Light. That is not, I don't think that is considered nonfiction. It's actually historical fiction, but I did put it here because it does not fit in my historical fiction section anymore. But these are all of my nonfiction books, and as you can see, I have a very weird selection. My interests are just like they're varied. They're varied in nonfiction. I kind of just like a lot of random things. I love nature. I love history. I love Russian stories. I love nature more. I have a random book about Bonnie and Clyde that I really want to read, and yeah, just a lot of like random niche stuff. I have been meaning to read this every single summer, pretty much since it came out, so I'm hoping that maybe this year I can get to it. This is Educated by Tara Westover. Also, I just noticed that Russian Fairy Tales is included in here, and obviously that is not nonfiction, but it is kind of textbook-y. There's a lot of analysis in this book, I believe, so I've put it here. But I'm not going to stress too much about organization. I've also really wanted to read Gulag for years and years, and so I think that might be my next read. And then just going quickly over here to this little section, this is my Russian section, and I am so in love with this section. It's very small. I want it to grow. I want to collect as many Russian lit books as possible and read them all. I am going to read Crime and Punishment with a friend of mine in February, and I am very excited. It'll be my first Dostoevsky. And I just can't wait. It's going to be great. I really want to read Dead Souls this year. I mean, honestly, when I look at these, I want to read all of them. I do have a new Tolstoy coming in, Childhood, Boyhood, and Youth. And then I also have a selection of short stories on my January to read shelf, which is a completely different shelf, and we will get there. If you'll notice, I set up these shelves so that all of my classics, nonfiction, and Russian lit, the kind of books that are a little bit more difficult to read, I put them all in the same place, because then what I have are the books right next to it are the ones that I would likely pair
with this genre while reading them, because I find, obviously, if you're reading too many thick books, too many heavy books, too many dense works at a time, it's overwhelming, and you I don't know, I'm sure people can do that, but I can't do that. So I always like to pair a more dense work with a lighter read, something that I can get through a little bit quicker, something that, you know, I'll still love, that's still worthy and beautiful, but it's just a little bit of a different kind of engagement. So right next to all of this dense lit, I have more lighthearted stuff. So I have adult fantasy. I don't have a lot of adult fantasy on my TBR. I've got these 3 books. I really want to read His Majesty's Dragon because I'm a sucker for any dragon warfare book. Honestly, give me Rex if you know some, because I love dragon warfare books. And then I also have a Brandon Sanderson on another shelf that I will want to read, but I think my husband's going to read it first. And then down here, continuing on next to nonfiction, I have contemporary fantasy romance. I also have some middle grade that I really want to read, just like very lighthearted works. This Fall of Lucifer book I randomly picked up at a used bookstore, so I have no idea if it's going to be good, but hey, why not? Give it a try. This section here, I'm not entirely sure how to label it. It is largely historical fiction, but it's also contemporary literature, I believe. I would say there's a couple contemporary works on here, you know, Murakami, Eggers. That is more of contemporary than historical fiction, but the large majority of this is historical fiction. I also have a random edition of The Turn of the Screw, and I also have Pedro Páramo. They don't really fit in this section, but I don't really know where else to put them, and I really wanted them front and center because I really want to read both of those books, like ASAP. So we have historical fiction, we have a little bit of magical realism. I believe The Water Dancer is more magical realism. We have a lot of historical fiction. I love historical fiction. It is my original love in books, and I don't nearly read as much as I should, but that is what this challenge is all about, because I want to read every single one of these books so badly. So I am going to do it. This is the year I start reading historical fiction again. And then right above historical fiction, I have my YA, largely YA fantasy. And I mean, come on. This shelf is just filled with amazing adventures that I cannot wait to go on. I bought all 4 of these books at a used bookstore recently, and by recently I mean like 2 or 3 months ago, and I haven't read them. We have a singular manga that I really want to read that, again, my partner picked up for me. He thinks that I'll really like it, and I have every faith that I will. We have Midnight in Everwood, which I've wanted to read because you know my love of books that have to do with snow and that are set in snowy places. And Onward. So really quickly, this is just an overview of my bedside table. I have talked endlessly about the Bronze Horseman series, and there's a little bit of Anne of Green Gables there, more Bronze Horseman, so I won't get into those, but those are the books that are up there. We also have a War and Peace edition. And then down here is actually what I wanted to call attention to. So at the beginning of every month, I go through my bookshelves and I pick out a little pile of books that I really want to get to that month, books that I've been meaning to read. Often they are books that fit the theme of the month ahead. So I really wanted some cozy reads. I wanted a little bit of like New Year goal setting, and also snow. Obviously, so much snow. So this pile was a lot bigger at the beginning of the month. I've actually read 6 books already this year, and I'm currently working my way through these 2 books. I haven't started this. I plan to start it today. I am about a finger way through the German War. It's also a fantastic history if you're into that sort of thing. And I'm thinking I'm going to get to Anne Radcliffe and Stephen King, some more Tolstoy and snow in the second half of this month. So that's where I keep my kind of current TBR and books that I want to read like within the next month. I am not beholden to this
Obviously, like if I don't feel like reading any of these books, then I will grab a book from my bookshelf. But it's just kind of nice to organize that way.
And I have a couple books on my desk, which are just the complete works of the Grimm's fairy tale, which I will read throughout the year. I'm so excited to read that book. I got that for Christmas. It's a beautiful edition. And there are a couple books on my partner shelves that I really want to read. A Brandon Sanderson, The Lord of the Rings. Those books are books that I'm definitely reading this year. They're just not on my shelf, they're on his shelf. So for the sake of transparency, that is where they are. If you suddenly see me reading them and you're like, wow, that wasn't on your tour. I don't know if anyone is watching this closely. But, you know, this is about accountability for me. When I get my book haul, my final book haul of 2022, which they should be coming within the next month, I will definitely show you them. I'm really excited for all of them, and again, they're cross genres, which will be really nice. So I've already talked about how I'm gonna buy 2 books in February, and during my trip I will allow myself the honor of buying books as souvenirs. But I did want to talk about some of the things that make me a little nervous about this challenge. One is that I am an emotional reader, and I'm worried that there will be times when I don't feel like reading any of the books that I own, which is insane because, as you see, there are so many different genres to keep me engaged. I hope that doesn't happen. So far it hasn't. Whenever I look through these shelves, I get really excited about all of these books again because, like I've said, at some point I bought them with the intention of reading them, and I was very excited at that point in time to read it. So this is going to be good for that. The other thing that I'm a little bit nervous about is a lot of the books that I have, especially in the YA fantasy, are series. They are the start of a series. And so I'm really nervous that I'm going to pick up one of them and fall in love and want to buy the second book. If that is the case, I have told myself that I will rely on my Kobo and the library. And if there are series that I've read that I absolutely love that I want a copy of, for instance, the Bear and the Nightingale series, I read that in November. Love that series so much. I want all 3 of those books, but I don't have them all. So those might be the books that I buy on my trip as souvenirs, or I will keep a document on my computer with a list of all the books that I've read that I want to own. I will either buy them at bookstores when we go on our big trip, or I'll just wait for the end of the year, and whenever I go to a used bookstore, I'll see if they have them. I think going forward, a rule that I have for myself after this year is over, after my book ban has lifted, my book buying ban has lifted, I think that I will prevent myself from buying first books in the series. Book 1 of series, I don't know how to word that more eloquently, but I will use my Kobo and use the library for first books in series so that I can really gauge before committing to buying the first book whether or not I would even want to continue on with the series, because looking at this shelf, especially the YA fantasy, so many of the books that I own are book 1 of either trilogies or series or all of these things, and I'm probably not going to want to read on in a number of them. So that's it. That is my reading plans. I am nervous, I'm excited. There are so many books this year that I'm genuinely excited for, and when I think about all of the stories that I get to experience that I haven't experienced yet, and that I own, and that I don't have to spend money on, or I don't know, I just get really excited about it. So pray for me. Hope that I get through this year. Hope that I learn to be satisfied with what I have and not seek excitement from other places. And I'm sure I will update you throughout the year on my efforts. So wherever you are, thank you so very much for watching. Thank you for being here. I am going to update you in the future to see how this is going.